Here in Canada, the carbon tax is trending today as the controversy over the Prime Minister's decision to make home heating oil exempt from the carbon tax for the next 3 years continues to evolve in Ottawa. Today, Conservative leader Pierre Poilievre calling on the Liberals to pause the tax entirely and call an election over the issue, saying the exemption is dividing Canadians.
Where Canadians will decide between his plan to quadruple the tax to 61 cents a litre on heat, gas and groceries, and my common sense plan to axe the tax and bring home lower prices.
I think Canadians are deeply, deeply concerned about the need to continue to fight climate change in ways that makes life more affordable for them. That has been at the heart of what we've been doing for 8 years.
Last week, Justin Trudeau announcing a 3-year pause for households that use home heating oil, something that primarily benefits people in Atlantic Canada, where heating oil is more prevalent. Western premiers are calling on him to extend the pause to natural gas, which is more widely used, but Trudeau says he won't. Poilievre says he will bring a motion to the House next week calling for the exemption to be expanded to all types of home heating. For more on this, let's bring in Clifton van der Linden. He's a professor of political science at McMaster University and the director of the Digital Society Lab. Cliff, thanks for being with us.
Thanks for having me.
Why do you think Poilievre is calling for a carbon tax election?
It's a major plank on which the Conservatives imagine that they can run a very successful campaign. And in light of the current financial and economic climate, running against any additional taxes is probably a reasonable political strategy.
Why is the carbon tax such a divisive issue between Liberals and Conservatives?
I think it speaks to an array of ideological differences between the parties and their voters, frankly. But in terms of party ideology in particular, the Conservatives are differentiated from the Liberals on at least 2 areas that relate to the carbon tax. The first, of course, is views on how to address climate change. For a long time within the Conservative Party, there was a large debate on whether climate change was an issue at all, and then whether climate change was an issue that was primarily determined by human actions. Now the debate within the Conservative Party, while there are still discussions about those questions, the debate now has moved to what can we do about it? What is the right approach to try to address climate change? And where Liberals are more of the view of we have to continue to take steps to try to mitigate climate change, Conservatives tend to more and more move towards the position of we're going to have to learn how to manage in a world where climate change is inevitable. So that's one ideological division between the 2 parties. Another is the very idea of taxation itself and the role of the state. So this is not to say that Conservatives believe in abolishing all taxes. Of course, some major taxes in Canada were introduced by Conservative governments. But that is to say that the idea of trying to curb climate emissions by taxing households and by taxing individuals does seem a bit antithetical to a sort of conservative ideological perspectives.
Do you think Trudeau's pause is good policy or just good politics in Atlantic Canada?
I think it's a difficult argument to make that it's a good policy. The heating oil that's being used in Atlantic Canada has higher carbon emissions than natural gas that's used to heat homes elsewhere in the country. So the particular the notion that it somehow has a very strong policy argument behind it is I think difficult to sustain. The politics are much more obvious. Looking at the polling for the Liberal Party in Atlantic Canada, a Liberal stronghold for a very long time, has obviously sent chills through the machinery of the Liberal Party. And of course, Liberal MPs in Atlantic Canada are obviously pushing quite vehemently in caucus and in cabinet for some action to be taken because their seats are at risk. And so without meaning to be overly cynical, this seems like a particularly political move.
That's Clifton van der Linden. He's a professor of political science at McMaster University and the director of the Digital Society Lab. Cliff, thanks for being here.
Thanks for having me.